the Skeptical Leftist podcast, the show where I talk to a variety of people to spread critical thinking, progressive politics, and left-wing philosophy. And today I'm joined by Marino from the Big Shiny Takes podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Hello, thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to be here. I am always game to spread progressive and leftist thought. So, especially in this very narrow political landscape that we enjoy in Canada so much. So I'm excited to be here.
Right on. Yeah, no, it is very narrow, isn't it? Like everything that's in the acceptable worldview is like center or right, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We don't really have, I'm sure this has come up on your show before, but we really do not have any left-wing representation electorally.
Yeah.
The best that we have is the NDP. And I used to be hopeful, optimistic about the NDP, but I mean, they basically like eradicated mention of socialism from their charter, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, even if they still paid lip service to it, like they still really like their actions, their policy things, like they just aren't left wing at all, really.
No, they're talking about like, really, I view them these days as, and I still like whatever, I check the box every 7 or so years that we have an election here at whatever level. Right. But they're basically, how I view them now is they're the liberals light. They're talking about upholding small business.
Right.
They have mentioned taxing the wealthy, but they always couch it like we're taxing the ultra wealthy.
Right.
What the hell does that even mean? like I don't know, tax a corporation. That's where really the money is. And that's right. What we need to bring to heel, in my view. So there's that. And then, of course, we have a liberal party that is, as you said, center-right, basically. Yeah. People don't like to say that, but.
Well, especially like the people in the party. Like, wasn't it just recently Jean Chrétien was like, oh, we need to pull back to the center, like as if they've gone anywhere else.
Right. And the other thing that I saw, because, and like, if you don't know, of course, Justin Trudeau has resigned as Liberal leader, but some of the brouhaha or the rumblings underneath that was people were saying he pulled the party too far to the left. Friggin' how did I miss that part?
Yeah. I definitely did. I didn't see any of that. Like, pretty wild. I guess because he was a quote unquote a feminist, right? That's too far to the left.
Yes, and we all know a man saying he's a feminist makes it absolutely true. He's absolutely
a very serious thing.
There's nothing. Actually, I did see a quote about that recently. That it's basically it's basically impossible for a man to call himself a feminist. And like, it does seem like a bit of a, what's the word? Conflict of interest. Like, and right. I'm not saying be shitty to women. Like, you should absolutely respect women, but it's just like, there's something about it that you can never fully understand. And going out there and like, just being like, hey, I'm a feminist. It's kind of almost like a red flag, especially when you examine his behavior and his history of chauvinism and his like, just the way that he treats women. So something there is not passing the smell test.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I'm always wary. I support feminism, I guess is where I
exactly.
You know, I don't try to call myself a feminist. I say I'm a person who supports feminism.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Same. Yeah.
Because like it seems men who call themselves feminists often turn out to be predators of some kind. That's yeah.
And like, I don't want to go too deep into this on a tangent, but there's the Neil Gaiman news that came out.
Oh, yeah.
And that guy was a huge, like, I hate to use the word virtue signaling, but he was very performative about how twee and understanding and woke he was and how understanding of women. And he's basically, allegedly, but I believe victims personally, allegedly a serial rapist.
Yeah.
Which is, man,
anyway. Pretty wild. Yeah, and that was like, that's the new stuff, because like it was, I mean, he was like accused of all kinds of inappropriate behavior a while ago too now. And like now it's all this like pretty extreme stuff that's coming out that you go, holy shit. Like,
yeah, big time. Like, usually, okay, I don't have there's the whole separating the artist from the art thing. And I think that's important to a degree, but I think
Right.
there's levels to it. I have some friends who are Harry Potter fans. I'm not going to begrudge them, even though I think J.K. Rowling's personal views are abhorrent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kanye West, like that's maybe a bit of a more of a degree because it gets into very,
Yeah.
I don't know, like what again? It's like, and who am I to say that trans identity is on one level higher or another than Jewish identity? Like, who am I to make those? But anyways, that's just their personal beliefs. But when it gets to a point like the Alice Munro stuff, the Neil Gaiman stuff, where there's a material effect on someone's life,
Yeah.
I personally will never be able to touch his work again.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I don't know. Like, I guess obviously I like Sandman and I like a lot of other things that he was involved in, right? Like, so it's tough, but like, yeah, I guess it should on some level also be easy to just say, I just won't watch that again, or I just won't read that again.
Yeah.
I won't buy anything that money goes to that guy.
Yes, for sure. I mean, like he's certainly worked on some like extremely heralded, some of the best in the genre. Like I have my friends, a friend of mine from journalism schools, Sandman copies. He moved back to the East
Nice.
Coast. I've been meaning to get them back to him, and they've been on my list for ages. And I don't also on like to shift the subject more so towards whether we should be hiding certain works. I'm certainly not the kind of like person who would censor anything. I think we can have access to all this stuff. It's just, again, like you said, a matter of whether we put money into it. Like just, it's there on the library shelf. You can examine your own like moral approach to it. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Like, my daughter still is a Harry Potter fan. She grew up watching the movies and reading the books, and like, so it's part of her, who she is, like as a person. But yeah, I don't buy her anything regarding, Harry Potter. I don't put money towards J.K. Rowling in any way. But I don't say, hey, you can't watch that. You can't read that, book that you already own that you've read, number of times that you consider valuable to you. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I still listen to Metallica and they fucking suck.
I was a big That 70s Show head growing up.
Shit, yeah.
It's funny because I was just on the Blue Sky, all us Twitter exiles, trying to grit our teeth through it's a very resistance lib kind of place. I'm finding that's my biggest criticism of it. But someone was posting about how they were like longing for syndicated television, and I was like, yeah, and saying it was like they were saying how it was such a moment of like cultural sharing, like we'll never sort of reclaim that, which you know what, now that I actually examine that, I'm not sure that I'd agree that we have social media and things have sort of replaced that, and meme culture and all that. But the classic getting around the water cooler thing and talking about the latest episode of Seinfeld, and like, yeah, I learned how to be a young adult from That 70s Show before tech innovators revolutionized everything and changed the way we communicate, but much to my chagrin. But like, yeah, and like obviously the allegation, well, not allegations, he's convicted, Danny Masterson, and I definitely still watch the clips, but every time he comes on screen, something clicks in my head, like, ugh.
Yeah, there's that moment where you're like, oh no, not that guy.
He's giving me the ick.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Some of that stuff, like I can't really enjoy Seinfeld the way I used to either, because some of the shit that he's said, like, wow, fuck. Like, okay, maybe I can see past it a little bit for some of the gags or whatever, but like, those sort of suck. Like,
it's so interesting to see how the culture has shifted around that sort of thing, because he's never really, I think one person he dated was basically 17, which is off the, it was not legal basically, but like, it's sort of similar to like the Lewinsky stuff. Back then it was seen as more acceptable. Like, why wouldn't you want to date like basically a child? Or like in the case of Clinton, he is the president. and that's an
Yeah.
intern who's 22. The power dynamics at play there, and at the time, people were blaming Monica Lewinsky. She's like seducing him and all this stuff.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm in much very happy to see that the conversation has completely shifted. Those dudes are creeps abusing their power, and
Yeah.
that's just not cool.
Yeah, it's funny. Like a lot of the people that got vilified by the media and by the public when I was, a teenager or young adult, we owe them all major apologies. Like the one I always think of is Sinead O'Connor. Like she got
Oh yeah, yeah,
pilloried so bad, right? And oh, she was so vindicated. She was right, 100%. Like
for sure. I wish I had an example. I'm sure something will pop into my head, but Sinead O'Connor is a great example. But like, or the Dixie Chicks. The Dixie Chicks caught
Yep.
so much heat coming out of like that war that we all now understand. Man, the fervor of pro-American sentiment coming
Yeah.
out of 9/11 and like just pro like get those terrorists kind of stuff.
Okay.
Like just awful, awful. I think an interesting thing has happened with social media and people being able to become self-broadcasters and us not getting everything fed through some CNN editorial filter where they're only showing Iraq as a series of sand dunes and whatever, where we're
Right.
actually seeing the human impact in Gaza, for example.
Yeah.
And there's just much more support and much more criticism toward the American military industrial complex and what they are doing to preserve their hegemony in America. It's just, I guess, like, yeah, that's a positive development about social media as much
Yeah.
as these aforementioned big tech companies try to control everything, and Elon Musk wants to buy up Twitter. I think there was talk of him buying TikTok, which is imminently going to be banned. Like, man, they really hate when we talk amongst ourselves and come up with our own opinions, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. They want us reciting what power wants the narrative to be, which is why like Elon Musk gets to control what's going on Twitter now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but TikTok's got to be banned. Google and or Facebook can decide that fact checking's not important anymore because
oh my god. That I was using Instagram more because, and on a personal note, I'll sort of mention this to get it out there in the ether. Like I'm moving away from journalism and moving toward more of a creative pursuits, being an actor, I write poetry more than I write blogs or anything.
cool.
And I find like Instagram is a good place where the artists are, where they're sort of sharing and stuff like that. And then as soon as I start to use Instagram more, Musk is saying, or sorry, Zuck, Zucker Musk, the Zuck Musk connection. My God, like he's saying, like, yeah, it's okay to just dehumanize gay people, LGBTQ communities.
Right.
We can just call that a mental illness because we don't want to infringe on the rights of chuds, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
Social conservatives with ideas from just I get. I don't know, man. No, I'm not going to give that any oxygen. It's just it's a shitty opinion to have.
Yeah,
that's my
right.
political opinion as a
it's garbage. Yeah.
Male feminist.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It is garbage though. Like I didn't even listen to his little speech about it because I don't care what he had to say. Like his excuses about, oh, we want to, promote free thought or whatever. Like, so you just don't care if things are true or not. And you don't care about spreading bigotry. Like this is Facebook's the same website that was basically responsible for a genocide. So like, of course he doesn't give a shit.
Mm-hmm. I heard a quote once that was something akin to reality leans to the left. And I think, well, I am more to the left of that. And I think reality should shift more than that.
Yeah.
It's very sad how we sort of all agreed on certain things, I would like to believe, and that it was a niche opinion to be hateful towards the LGBTQ community, for example, to be openly racist. And they're really just trying to make more room for that. And I question how real it is at the same time. You see all
Right.
this stuff online about these like Johnny 54652 is calling for a white ethno state in Tim Hortons. And it's just
Yeah.
like I don't think people are really realistically that extreme about it or have such strong feelings. Like certainly I talked to my mom about it and she's like, oh, classic boomer racism and stuff like that. So I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. I just think they're cooking the books on how hateful the society
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't. So, yeah, I think, like, say, Twitter, for example, is probably a subsection of society, right? Like, but there's no way that every time I go out and I say, like, I'm anti-racist out in real public, like, that I'm going to get 1,000 fucking commenters coming at me to be like, oh, you're a fucking loser, get out of this country. Like,
Right? Like and it all changed. It all changed overnight. We saw the change. Musk took over, and maybe it wasn't an immediate ramp up. Now that place is just a Nazi hive. I personally have been private on Twitter since basically November.
right.
I'm not saying like I struggle with this. I consider should I come back? Should I try and build clout there, sort of
Right.
thing? On a personal note, because of the whole acting and pursuit, I see it as unnecessary. But at the same time, it's just sad that that's happened. Like it just
Yeah.
man, you just say like homeless people deserve rights, and they're calling you a cuck like in like 0.2 seconds. Like
Yeah, like before we hit the actual record button, I was talking about the Christian Freeland tweet with like 3 coffee cups and 4 phones, and she's like, I'm dealing with so many calls and I'm just so busy. and but if you scroll through the replies,
mm-hmm.
it's all chuds being like, you destroyed Canada, get out of the country, go live with Davos.
Like, don't these people have to cook dinner or something? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe like maybe I'm a hypocrite here because I am 1/3 of a podcast that makes it its job to be critical of what we see as a very substandard status quo for the opinion sections in mainstream media and newspapers.
Right.
But we try to approach that with a more constructive criticism. We at least try to get a guest on. The podcast name, by the way, I will say again, is Big Shiny Takes. Go listen. It's on all your favorite podcast providers. And we just, we take a column from typically the National Post because they're the worst offender, but also, sometimes from the Star, sometimes from the Globe and Mail, and pick it apart. And we'll have a guest there that's not like we're 3 white dudes. It is a 3 white dude podcast, but we'll have a woman, we'll have a member of the LGBTQ community, we'll have a person of color, depending on what the particular, like usually these are columns that are directly attacking one of these groups,
Right. Yeah.
to provide context. And we mix in a little bit of humor, but also we do try to make it a constructive criticism. And it's like, I've moved away from at least being sort of like a reply guy and having
Right.
just a gut reaction response. I want to be a little bit more intelligent about what I have to say online if I'm going to say something.
Yeah, that's fair. I still find myself like, it's only on Twitter. I don't do it anywhere else, but when I get on Twitter, I'll see somebody say the stupidest fucking thing you've ever heard. And of course, I have to be like, what the fuck is actually wrong with you?
Yeah. Again, I'm probably being a hypocrite and not and editorializing my own conduct. But if I was part of the reason I go private is just to ensure that I don't do that because it's
Yeah,
easy.
for
And you know
sure.
what? Absolutely, I'm there liking the replies, trying to tilt the scales a little bit for the replies. But here's the thing: you know what I'll say is when leftists, I bet you're saying more intelligent stuff in those replies. I bet it's at least
10 million, yeah.
witty, and the chuds are like you said, just like you ruined Canada. Just this like pablum that is like
Yeah.
ruined it. Like it
Reciting talking points that they heard from somebody else sometime on fucking Ezra Levant's fucking show or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember because so John Gormley, I talk about him occasionally.
Oh yeah.
The radio host from Saskatchewan, he's destroyed Saskatchewan's critical thinking capabilities. He and so if you comment on things in Saskatchewan, you'll often get things that you hear from John Gormley, or you would have before you retired. And I always wondered, like, so when people like these trolls come out with like the racist, go back to your own country, stop, communism never works, whatever it is they
Oh
have
my
to
God.
say.
Yeah. Do you know how much money went into communism, quote unquote, never working? And also
Yeah,
it has worked in some places. So check your facts. But go on.
yeah. I often wonder, like, so this guy's on his phone, right, or on his computer, berating people for being different than him. What's his
Mhm.
partner think? Like, does he have a girlfriend? Does he have children? What do they think of the way that their father or partner or whatnot is behaving towards other people? I would hope, like, I want my family to be proud of me. Like,
One can only wonder. I find at least in my past relationships, I've never really had a partner who was extremely online. So maybe it
okay,
just balances out that way. I
yeah,
mean, the last person oh my God, we're getting Marino's relationship history, but this is pertinent to the conversation. My last partner was like a very status quo liberal, thought
okay.
Bernie bros were insufferable.
Oh, geez,
Yeah, and like supported Kamala Harris way back then, probably just
wow.
because like she was a woman and seemed approachable, seemed and like honestly, I thought she would win the election. I thought she had that sort of like
I did too, actually. I
yeah,
was
that
kind of surprised the way that
juice.
went.
But
Yeah.
I think
Uh,
when you actually present people with the alternative, like I always go back to the Bernie on Fox News thing and how when he spoke in practical terms about this stuff,
yeah.
people were eating it up. But it's like in the absence of actual left wing representation electorally, they're just going to gravitate towards, I guess, whatever the conservative is saying. If they're appealing to a different side of them, like the anti woke or whatever, instead of like
Yeah.
appeasing their material politics concerns. I'm a very material politics person more and more
Yep.
as I grow. And I don't know if I'm going anywhere with this conversation. We just need more left wing representation. And it's
I
good. There's
think
an appetite for it.
I think I was watching Rachel Gilmore, and she was talking about like how like Pierre Poilievre, as bad as he is on a variety of topics, he is the only politician right now in Canada who's like saying, "I understand that it sucks for regular people.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts. You spend all your money on rent and groceries, and we got to do something about that." Like he's the only one actually saying it, and that sucks.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, for real. And like to go back to the whole, liberal leadership race, I think it's pretty much sort of wound down to the choice between Freeland or Carney, and
Uh,
and a lot of people are really putting putting their guns behind Mark Carney. He was on the Daily Show this week, which was an
okay,
interesting thing to happen. And it's like this guy is a former Bank of Canada economist. Like, do you
right,
not remember what propelled Justin Trudeau to power? Honestly, I think a lot of federal politics is also very shallow, and that if you have like a good hairline and whatever, that
right,
that will. But it's like Trudeau also spoke to the people in certain ways, like because it's 2016 and that
right.
sort of stuff, and like first past the post, that famous failed promise to
Yeah,
of electoral reform. Things that people wanted. And I maybe I like I'm not I haven't been paying too close attention because I'm extremely black pilled towards electoral politics, but like
yeah,
I think Carney, I don't see him really doing that. I don't see Freeland doing that. Yeah, like you said, they're just sort of showing that we're capable, we're so learned, and like, man, that kind of is like bad. Like people see that and like, oh, look at these friggin'
yeah,
know-it-all liberal elites,
yeah. Like
Laurentian elites.
I don't know how it plays in Ontario or BC, but in Saskatchewan, nobody likes that shit.
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, Ontario's interesting. I think there's definitely more of an appetite for it.
Okay.
But there's also People in the suburbs, lots of people in the suburbs. In fact, that's probably where most of the people are and most of the electoral power is. And a
Yeah,
lot of little small business fiefdoms and a lot of real estate money. And those
right.
people are interested in preserving that. And it just always seems to flip between liberal and conservative
Yeah.
in this province, save for a few small ridings. Shout out to the Danforth, where there is like a bit of a working class ethic, and Hamilton as well. That's another uh, 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 exception to the rule. But there's just a lot of, if not suburban uh, electoral ridings. There are heavily rural electoral ridings. I have a lot of family in Madoc, Ontario, just outside of Belleville.
Okay.
They're not liberal voters.
Right. Yeah. And I understand it because
Oh
I
yeah,
don't like the liberals either, right? Like,
no,
but I think that yeah, they don't. Back to the material thing, they don't address the material concerns of people trying to live through whatever housing crisis and whatnot that we're having.
and it's so difficult right now. I'm not going to say that I have it as tough as others. I'm lucky to be insulated by a bit of family wealth and my own good fortune of getting some, honestly, not even that great communications and journalism work in my time. And it's still difficult. I'm paying
Yeah.
what I pay for groceries, the cost of housing, the
Yeah.
just every, and it just seems like it's getting to a point where it's not even sustainable anymore.
Well, that's how I felt last year, and things are just getting worse. Like, so I don't know where is the breaking point. Is like I keep thinking it's got to be any time now.
I don't, what bothers me too is like there's just not much of a revolutionary appetite in this country still. Like, where is nobody mad? Is so many of my friends, not my journalism friends, they are exceptions to the rule and are fired up about this stuff. But I see a lot
Right?
of my friends from that I grew up with, and they're just so content to play their games at night. And if things are just kind of okay for them, to keep going. But I know it's tough for them. And I
Yeah.
know that and there are people in this country for whom it is very, very easy.
Yeah. That's yeah. That's right. I
Um,
like I get so I work in the oil field,
oh, nice.
and so generally the guys out there we all make a decent living. Uh, you can it's one of the few places where a guy with no education can go and work a labor job and come away with a decent enough paycheck to feed your family and put a roof over your head.
Mm-hmm.
And but they all still are like we're all noticing like groceries are ridiculous. You go out and you spend $200 and you come home with almost nothing. And like I have I have a household of six.
Whoa.
So we spend a lot of money on groceries, and yeah, it's I know we feel the pinch, and like it seems like everybody that I work with, even though they're all making decent, better money than minimum wage, everybody's feeling the pinch, and I worry because like people who are less privileged than I am, how are they even surviving? How do they have enough money to live? I just makes me want like it blows me away.
Oh no, I think minimum wage is just a joke.
Yeah,
It will not cover rent. Like you got to have
right.
something going on, or probably I'm assuming people get by through side hustles, and that sucks. We should not be living to work. There needs to be rest. And this
Yeah,
sucks for people who want to be in creative industries. I, again, am very lucky to have what I have that I'm able to even pursue what I'm
right.
trying to pursue. Like artists used to be able to work a part time job and just have their bases covered and have some free time to focus on their art. I don't understand. Like, art is now just a luxury that is enjoyed by, I guess, people who are middle class and up or have some family money. And that
Yeah,
sucks because how many friggin' voices are we stifling? Probably the most important voices.
that's right. Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
Because the
I don't
best art
know.
has always come from people who are struggling and suffering and who have something to say about the world, right? And yeah,
Exactly. And I think,
what do you have to say about the world if you're not struggling at all.
Mhm.
Like, you know,
I
but
mean, partly I've been sort of embracing struggle in a
yeah,
way, or intentionally making it difficult to myself, or giving myself no other option than to take my little acting classes, and in a way sort of just like using my good fortune in a different way than just pursuing the safest job. The say like
right.
journalism. I went into journalism originally to quote unquote monetize my creative skill set, which is very funny to me because journalism is not, folks, kids, if you're thinking about going into journalism, here's what I'll say: go into it if it is your dying passion. It's a
Right.
passion project job. It
Yeah.
used to be a job where people could go in and you're a writer and you can make a decent living. If you want to do that, just cut to the chase and get a communications degree or a marketing degree. That's
Yeah.
where the money's going to be. But
Yeah.
if you really want to be a reporter, I believe if you work hard at it, there is maybe a space for you, but it is extremely difficult and you're going to be underpaid. I think I saw an article recently that Romy from Press Progress posted that Press Progress is, by the way, a great independent journalism source that you should all be following. But this article that was an external article that PR professionals outnumber journalists in this country 14-1.
Wow.
And that was my lived experience trying to find those journalism jobs when I was still pursuing this. It was like one reporter job would come up on LinkedIn a month, maybe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then all these comms jobs. So like journalism, making safe decisions sort of just led me down the road to a very dissatisfying communications work.
Yeah. My partner, she has a communications degree and she has worked as a journalist in various things. And she currently has abandoned that entire avenue. She just wants nothing to do with it.
Oh yeah. Like I don't want to be like, I support independent journalism. I try to read, although I'm again watching more movies these days and watching more creative stuff. But uh, yeah, on a personal note, I'm not going to lie, there's some resentment. This was supposed to be a safe bet in some degree. It was supposed to be safer
Right.
than acting and all that. And it's sort of like I just sort of should have gone for that from the beginning,
Yeah.
or taken a much more different approach to what was safe, or quote unquote learn to code. I can't
Yeah.
blame your partner for wanting nothing to do with this. I respect my friends who are still cutting their teeth out there. I know Jeremy
Not
and Eric
easy.
have both,
Yeah.
my co-hosts on Big Shiny Takes, they have both carved out a station for themselves. Jeremy's a fantastic freelance reporter who has
Yeah.
broken numerous stories and interviewed the prime minister at one point. You should listen to, or sorry, you should follow his Substack, The Orchard, and listen to his Orchard cast. And then Eric is working as just like a one of the best in Canada sound podcast editors for Press Progress Sources again, and
Yeah.
also working on Tech Won't Save Us and their new show System Crash. All those things I just said are worth your time if you're
Yep.
interested in good journalism. So yeah. But yeah, very, very tough industry.
Yeah. Like you say, like it's not even, you almost can't do it in legacy stuff. You have to do it independently. And then,
Oh no, yeah.
like you say, carve out your own niche the way they did. It's, and Nora Loretto's basically done the same thing.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you said the stuff about the legacy and independent, because that's a very interesting. The only real journalism job that I had before I pivoted to comms was working as an editor for this company called PageMasters. PageMasters is a division of the Canadian Press, which is partly owned by Torstar and the Globe and Mail, and I think maybe Reuters. I don't know. Someone
Okay.
fact check me. Go look it up. Don't quote me on that. But basically, I was an editor at this company, PageMasters, but I was working on the Globe and Mail as a cost-cutting measure, basically like a subcontractor. I was part-time for 2 years before even becoming full-time, working 2 to 10, cutting my teeth, like just content mill editing, like anything they threw at me, and I couldn't even really do any real editing.
Right.
And that was my first introduction to the journalism industry. That was the mainstream path. And it you couldn't even say Palestine. You had to like follow all their
Right.
legacy media rules. And it's just like, why are you even being a journalist if you're just going to advance like a very sort of like narrow narrative? You're basically just sort of like parroting the state line.
Right.
And I will say that one of the bright spots in this industry in recent time has been the rise of independent media, the Harbinger Media Network, which with Big Shiny
Yep.
Takes, we were one of the first shows to help lift that up. And all the just go to the Harbinger Media Network site and look up all the shows and look up all the independent outlets. There are some people doing great work, and I think there are some like independent journalism initiatives from the government, which, by the way, we could have a whole discussion that I'm not qualified to have about how to fund this stuff,
Right.
and paywalls don't work. But I think the answer is treating it like a public service, because this stuff does not make money. People don't
Right.
want to pay paywalls. The tech has upended ad models. But yeah, independent journalism and the rise of that has been a bright spot, and it's where a lot of people are going to actually do the work that needs to be done, which is crazy because like when I was in journalism school, it's sort of like, no, don't do things independently. You have to be like sheltered by the legacy media stewards who
Right.
will teach you how to do things and protect you and have the ability to save you if you get sued. But the thing I'll say about legacy media as well is that we are starting to see a bit of optimism. I see a lot of it at the Toronto Star, even though the Star is owned by those new owners that are a little
Right.
bit like, I believe there's some sort of hedge fund finance guys, but they're publishing people like Luke LeBrun and Luke Savage. I think Eric I had drinks with Eric yesterday, and he was mentioning how they have like an editor there who is publishing other people. They publish Paris Marks, who did who does Tech Won't Save Us.
Right.
And there are, I will say, a few more jobs on the market. Still very, very slim pickings, and you have to be good. But and you're fighting with all the like legacy journalists and fired journalists who also want to get
Right.
work. So that's
Yeah.
a bright spot. And I think I saw today something about the CBC hiring more journalists and their regional bureaus, which is
Okay.
part of being successful in journalism. Involves going out to different markets.
Right.
So yeah, that's my TED talk about the state of the journalism industry.
Jeez, eh? Yeah. I've always like I guess when I was about university age, a lot of people talked about the U of R because it had a great journalism program for a while. I don't know where it is now, but uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was a viable thing that people wanted to do at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, it's just fallen farther and farther away. And like you say, like there's the cliche, right, of like journalism is supposed to speak truth to power. But how do you do that when power owns and controls the voice of the journalist?
Right.
Like, it just doesn't work.
It's definitely a conflict of interest. I just take like faith in the fact that you should follow like journalists. I think if you're listening to legacy stuff, like follow, I would say, certain voices who advance certain narratives more than like the general editorial thrust of the legacy institution.
Yeah.
In journalism, that's less of an issue because, I mean, often in the case of those publications, the person who has editorial control is themselves a working journalist with left wing leanings, at least in the terms of the independent journalism that I follow. But
Right.
yeah, it's holding truth to power. Going back to what you said about teaching it in school as a profession, I personally, I don't even think it should be taught at the college level. Not as like something like, oh, you're going to make a job out of this.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe that could get into like an area of elitism. I just see it as more of an intellectual pursuit. You'll learn
Right.
the technical stuff on the job. That's
Right.
less the concern. It's more of these like soft skills. I don't even know. I don't, you know what? Yeah, whatever. I don't know. It's just like, it's difficult. Don't expect it to be this easy path to a guaranteed job for sure.
For
I mean,
sure.
like, what is these days anyways?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I that's just it. Like, what is there is no job that you are guaranteed because every time like there's a industry that needs people, like schools and whatnot shuffle everybody into those programs, and then it becomes an overwhelming number of people applying for those jobs. So then even those jobs that exist, there's so a limited number of spots for the number of people who need work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's tough to even get like a part-time job these days. Like I'm, pardon me, in between things and looking for very people facing work, like something simple like a barista job, but like
Oh
not.
yeah.
I used to work for Starbucks. That's a no go anymore because
Right.
their stances on Palestine
Yeah,
conflict, and also their honestly, even before that all came to the fore. I was like very turned off by their anti-union, anti-labor
for
approach.
sure.
But yeah, trying to find like barista work just at a small cafe near here, or just like sales associate work for a vintage shop. Hey, I'll work for Uniqlo even. Something people facing that gets me communicating more and getting more, and just like, paying the bills while I take like classes in
Right.
acting and try to like go to cafes to work on my poetry and poetic practice. And it is tough to find those jobs. There's
Yeah.
competition for those jobs. There's a reason why you see people who are new to Canada riding these like God, I feel so bad like for people who have to like struggle doing that. And just like that's just what you have to do to make it in this
Yeah.
country if you don't have the Canada approved skill set, because I'm sure a lot of those people have degrees from other countries.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it's like it's just
Yeah.
to me it's all symptom of a very sick society.
Yeah, that's right. Just well, there's so many people who are working, if they can get it, multiple jobs. So
Mm-hmm.
then, yeah, so then it's like, yeah, it's just when you, it's so hard to survive. What are people supposed to do if they can't get work and they can't pay their rent? Like, and then they get criminalized for being homeless. Like,
Oh my God, I know. Just beyond the pale. Like truly,
yeah,
truly, like how can someone like Doug Ford get up there and say that stuff about like we're going to charge you $10,000? The people are living out of a fucking tent, dude.
they don't have it.
Like
Like,
where's your empathy? You have everything you could ever want in life, or
yeah,
like and like just some of his like you've been in politics all these years. Maybe you had like your working class origins as a drug dealer in high school or whatever. But and then like someone like Stephen Lecce, who's like a golden spoon, like he's the I forget what his position now is, but he used to be the education minister in Ontario, and I think that shifted around. But basically, he is like straight picked out of like a political science program and put in like
right.
cabinet minister to Stephen Harper or something. Look it up. It's like real golden spoon stuff. You know who else is like that? Pierre Poilievre.
Yes, yeah, that's
Total
right.
lifetime politician, Mr. Working, speaking to the working class. So it's
Yeah,
like I don't know, man. Like it's easy to criticize Justin Trudeau and stuff, and like I'm no fan of Justin Trudeau. Let me get like,
right.
I'm not going to be some like blue sky resistance lib being like let's give Mark Carney a chance or whatever. But Justin Trudeau, at
Yeah,
least he worked as a drama teacher. People like to denigrate him for that. Like that's
that's
at
a
least
real job.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
for
can
sure.
respect that to a degree.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, I respect that particular thing, like being a teacher, way more than I respect being a politician.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that sentiment.
So I tried when Polyev was first coming out onto the scene, like for federally, like where I knew who his name was. I was like, okay, this guy's been a politician since he's 25 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he does not represent any of the people that we work with. Like, if you're falling for that, then you're falling for a con. And it fell on deaf ears then, and it still falls on deaf ears.
Yeah, I wish people would do their homework on this stuff or just take the right approach of like you think that like that is somehow excusable. Do you just not know that he's been I think people just don't know. Because you know what? He's been very good at I think he sort of does work to hide that
Yeah,
those aspects of himself.
Yeah, for
Yeah, it's
sure.
all performative. Him getting on the Jordan Peterson podcast, him sitting there with a hookah the next day, just trying to on one end saying like we have a problem with wokeism amplifying racist, or saying that Canada is racist, and then the next day like trying to appeal to the like multicultural vote by having by enjoying a hookah or shisha. I
Of
forget
course.
which. I don't know off the top of my head, but like, yeah,
Of
just
course. Eh?
all performative.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's that's the problem with politics, electoralism in general, right? It's because it is
Mm-hmm.
always performative because it actually doesn't matter who gets into power. These guys are all serving the corporate capital interests,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. Like they don't give a shit about us. That's why, and I talk about this with the guys at work a lot, is like that's why the CRA will audit you and not fucking Loblaws. Right? Like the guy who might be $100 behind on my taxes, they'll come after me, but they won't fucking go after the multinational corporations that literally owe them trillions of dollars.
Yeah, it's like there's not. That's one of the things that bugs me the most is just how there's not any accountability for these massive corporations. Like Canada basically is a corporate oligopoly,
Yeah,
like three mining companies in a trench suit,
yeah,
or three telecom companies, or three grocers in a trench suit. It's very
a
trench suit,
mining
trench
company, a
coat.
rail company, and an oil company.
Walk into a bar and try to pal it up with the working
That's right.
man.
That's
Like
right.
honestly, man, electoral politics. Yeah, I'm what when the Trump Kamala election was happening, I was sort of like having my little thought experiment because I can't vote in that election. Although I
Right.
was born in America, so maybe I should like make the effort to.
Right.
Um,
Jeez.
yeah, that's a little Marino tidbit. I was my parents were on vacation in Detroit. I'm a Detroiter, although I'm
Oh
more of a
wow.
Bills fan. But like, yeah, we were talking about I was with some friends on election night, in American election night, and we were talking about like, man, if I was in a position to vote, would I vote for Kamala? I thought she was going
Right.
to win, but it's just like the Democrats like stand for like they're not taking the right stance on Gaza, and
Yeah.
uh, uh, they're not what's the word, like they're I guess they were trying to court the right with Liz Cheney and stuff that
Yeah.
just like is really awful. And I think Desmond Cole gave me some great advice to not moralize the vote. And like it's just ultimately you're just going in there and checking a box. That's not to say that like
Yeah.
I'm in favor of strategic voting or anything like that. Like if it serves you, maybe that's your stance, but just it's a box that you check every 7 years. And that
Yeah.
should not be the beginning and the end of your political engagement.
Right. Right.
Everything is a political decision. It's much more important for me to, I just check that box the best way that I can based on, like, you're not going to be able to control who's going up there and
Yeah.
trying to be a representative. But you can control the ways in which you shift society in a more immediate sense, like right to your, like, know who your local city councilor,
Yep.
MP, and MPP is, or whatever they call it in your particular province, because that varies.
Yeah.
The try to be less of a consumer. That's something I'm trying to do. It's so funny. One of the last things I did in my previous job is they had this little like athletic reimbursement thing because we don't want to pay you more money, so we'll just sort of like hide it in these little bonuses.
Yeah.
But I used that to buy a bicycle.
Okay.
And I swear to God, in a month, they built bike lanes on my road. I don't know what that kind of like cosmic serpent serendipity that is. Like, but like,
Pretty good though. Yeah.
there's something about that is just connected in my head. And then Doug Ford started really going after bike lanes. And I was out there riding with people. Fuck that shit. And like that bill is, I don't really think he's going to rip out bike lanes. That's more of an omnibus bill to like thrust through his stupid like
Yeah.
pro car, build more highways crap, and
Right.
like less environmental regulation. And that's a whole conversation that more qualified people can make. But like, you'd be surprised how these little decisions that you make sort of feed out into real life. And yeah, again, every decision is a political one. I realize that more and more the older I get.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, that's like what's that? The personal is political. Like
Mhm.
that's the phrase. I think it's comes from feminism.
We keep going back.
Back around to that. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's one of those things, right? Like, because I identify as an anarchist. So I believe in building community and mutual aid and doing a lot of work outside of the system. And because I don't think the system can be trusted and everything it thinks it'll give you, it's going to take away eventually anyway, or it has the
Mhm.
ability to. Uh,
Mhm.
but I'm still kind of addicted in the way I was when I was a liberal to watching what's going on electorally. I envy the people that can focus so well on the mutual aid and stuff, and they never ever care or talk about who's prime minister or premier or what have you. I find that yeah enviable.
Mhm.
but
I think that's cool for sure. I personally identify as I don't have like I would say like I'm a small C communist. But like I'm also skeptical of the system. I think it's a really salient point that you bring out about its ability to take things away. We
yeah
all want to seem so comfortable, but like you said, CRA is going to go after you before they're going to go after Loblaws. It is built in a way that is against you.
yeah that's right.
Yeah.
But I guess we're at basically 50 some minutes here. So, what's something that you might want to mention that we haven't talked about?
Um, I think we basically covered all the bases of like where I'm at, and
Cool.
I gave the plug to Big Shiny Takes. Again, go listen to Big Shiny Takes. That's really my only current attachment to the journalism industry. But if I can make some recommendations,
For
I've
sure.
been reading this book that was recommended by my therapist called Meditations for Mortals by Oliver Berkman.
Okay.
It's a self-help book, but I'm a little I'm a little critical and skeptical of self-help as being a bit of a racket. And
Yeah.
this takes the approach of like this guy is a Guardian, like I think former or current Guardian feature writer, and
Okay.
also former productivity guy who went in a more Zen direction. And this
Interesting.
book is all about embracing limitations because you're never going to do it all.
Yeah.
And you're never going to find some perfect system for being on top of everything. And once you accept those limitations, you start to make time for the things that really matter. And that's why I'm selling the skateboard that I bought when I was like 26 because I cycle now and I'm never going to be a pro skateboarder. Sorry, all my hours of playing Tony Hawk did
Yeah.
not come to fruition. But you know, you got to let go of the things that do not serve you sometimes.
Yeah. For
And
sure.
another recommendation that I will make is Rifka by Mohammed Al Kurd. It is a book of poetry by a Palestinian writer
Ah.
that is equal parts heart wrenching but inspiring.
Okay.
It's just poetry is a highly imagistic art, and they it's just someone recommended it on Big Shiny Takes a couple months ago, and I picked it up because I'm a big poetry head, and it is a must read. So I
Nice.
would highly recommend that.
For sure. No, that sounds great. I guess you don't really want people to find you too many places, but
No, no, no. You know what? You can search on Blue Sky. I'm Marino Greco. I am public on Blue Sky. I don't have a lot to say these days, but I'm trying to. I still don't want to like be completely agnostic of the news. So you can find me on Blue Sky. I'm still Marino Greco on Twitter, even though I'm private. If you look like not a bot account in the follower requests, I'll probably grant you.
there you
And you
go.
can find me on Instagram, where I'm probably most active and probably going to be doing my more creative stuff and posting
That's cool.
under Bro Reno, Brorino. And I've made
Cool.
that public. So that's where you can find me. And I should set up one of those link trees. They seem useful.
Yeah, they have all the spots for you. So especially like I've got all the social media and I've got like multiple podcast links and multiple like support links and whatnot. So yeah, Linktree's a good tool.
Nice.
I hope they're not owned by somebody who sucks.
Oh man, what I've where I've landed with all that and with the Zuck stuff and Elon and whatever is like social media is just one of those. There's no ethical consumption under
Yeah.
capitalism thing. Just try to limit your use or use it as a tool and not become addicted to it. I know it's hard, but and
Yeah.
that's what unless they're really doing something bad, like don't be totally agnostic.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun talking.
All right, folks, that's all for now. Thanks for watching or listening. Remember to share this show with your friends or on the social media site that you use the most. Thank you to everyone who supports this show on Patreon. I really appreciate it and it helps me keep the power on. Thanks to my top patrons, Damian Marie at Hope, Some Random Geek, Justin Clark, Dan F. Smith, and Lisa Glass. And thank you to my new patrons. You can stay tuned for the list of patrons at the end to see your name listed. If you aren't a patron and want to contribute, you can do that at patreon.com/skepticalleftist, or you can send a one-time donation to buymeacoffee.com/skepticallefty. I also have a Substack where you can subscribe for free or you can donate per month. And lastly, you can get a paid subscription on Spotify that will give you the same access to bonus content and extra long episodes. If you can't contribute financially, then a like on YouTube or a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or one of the podcast review sites like Podchaser would be great. If you want to find more from me, then make sure to check out the show notes for links to all my stuff or check out my link tree. It's linktr.ee/skepticalleftist. That's where you can find all of my social media spaces and communities. You can also email me at mindofaskepticalleftist@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening or watching. Make sure to leave a comment on the video, join your local org, print off some posters or pamphlets, and spread the propaganda.
It's very related to materialism more than
Yeah.
identity politics. And we need to, as working class people, for whatever I have, the little friggin' mommy daddy money that I have, I still identify as a working class person. I'm not lying. I don't own companies. That
Right.
stuff makes me like, that gives me the ick. We need to be solidifying and fighting these institutional powers and these exploiters. And like we're literally entering another robber baron age.
Yeah.
And I just hope the axis of history turns. I know it will. I have faith that it can't stay like this forever. Even people in power, certainly. I don't want to give them credit. But like they've got to see that this is not working.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a matter of getting everybody on the same page.